Serious, what is the scariest thing to happen to you when you have been home alone? The lights turned off all at once while I was in the kitchen. It was pitch black. I heard the door open. For some reason, instead of thinking power outage, my brain went to someone has cut the power and is coming to kill me. I grabbed the landline, the knife, and was crouched behind the kitchen counter, hearing steps come through the house, trying to breathe as quietly as possible. Then I hear my mom go, "Hello? Anyone home?" The power went out by chance at the exact moment she came in the door. That would have been an awkward hospital trip. If the power goes out and the door opens, you have every right to believe there's a home invasion. Just imagine walking into your own house not knowing that a family member is about to stab you from the dark. My girlfriend and I both travel a lot for work, pre-COVID, so it's not unusual for only one of us to be home on any given week. Last fall she was in San Francisco, and I was home alone for a few days. We live in an apartment on the top floor of a building. Above us is a roof with a deck available to everyone. Middle of the night I get up to use the bathroom, and on the walk back to bed I look over to the study. There's a sliding door in the study leading to a balcony. I immediately stop dead in my tracks. I see the outline of a person standing on my balcony facing me. I run over, hit the lights, grab a knife from the knife block, and start dialing 911. The person is a kid no more than 16. He sees me hit the lights, grab a knife and my phone, and he immediately grabs the railing on my balcony and flings himself over. I run over assuming I just watched someone kill themselves, only to see him safe and sound on the balcony below me. He then hurdles off that balcony, has jumping from floor to floor. He hits the parking lot in the back of our building safely and then sprints off. Cops finally come and break up a party on the roof. Turns out he was just a drunk friend of someone on the second floor and got dared to do it. Also, shout out to my dog for being asleep 15 feet from the balcony and not doing anything. I have cameras at the entrances to my house. About 10 years ago people broke into the house while we weren't home. When I reviewed the recordings, you see the back door get blasted open by a sledgehammer. Then you see my dog run up, tail wagging. The burglars started petting him. He brought them his favorite toy. Then they moved off camera. I then saw his favorite toy fly past the camera and then off camera. Then I saw my dog run for it. He played fetch with them. The last thing they did before they left the house was struggle to close the door while pushing my dog back in the house. He still wanted to play. He wasn't a guard dog though. He loved everybody. He was really awesome with my daughter, and that's what counts. I was in my basement where the computer was playing some game, probably RuneScape, and heard someone pull into the driveway, naturally assuming it was my mother who was coming home from work. I heard the screen door open, but when no one opened the lock on the actual door I started to go upstairs, and I saw a pair of legs go by the window. While the basement was underground, there was about a foot that popped up above ground level and had 2 windows. I go upstairs and see 2 dudes in my backyard looking at the windows and talking about the door was locked. It was an attempted home robbery. We had been broken into a few times at that point and had everything locked, but 10-year-old me was terrified. Edit, because you guys keep asking, they just left. Nothing happened. No Home Alone deuce. I did not get killed. I'm very much alive. I heard gunshots when I was home alone for the first time as a 12-year-old. Turns out my neighbor was a murderer. At least 12 cop cars and like 2 fire trucks showed up, and I thought it was the end of the world, like a frequent murderer or he murdered someone. Either way, yikes. Not super scary, but one time, when I was like 11 I was home alone at night and got a call from the local sheriff's office who told me they just had a drop 911 call from this number, my house landline, and asked if I was okay. I didn't call them, nobody else was home. To call them IDK, it just creeped me out a lot. Wouldn't this be a technique of someone perhaps confirming if you an 11-year-old was home alone? Scary in either scenario. When I was home alone with my little sister, at the time I was probably 12 or 13 and my mom had just ran to the store for milk, these cops showed up at my door and asked if they could come inside to look around. I was a kid and confused, so I said okay. And they later told my mom that the house across the street was just broken into and the man had not been caught, and they were led to believe he was hiding out on a different property somewhere. so they thought this grown man was hiding in my garage or backyard while I was home alone with my sister. My mom never left the house without us again when we were kids. Someone tried to break into my neighbor's house while I was babysitting their kids. I was 15 and I used to babysit for my neighbors down the block. They had a really nice house, 3 floors with a built-in garage under the house that connected to the basement. It was the family's most used entrance of the house and they rarely locked the basement door as long as the garage was closed. They also had the type of security system where anytime a door opens you heard beep beep beep. After the parents left one night I was putting the kids to bed and I heard the beep beep beep. I yelled out, thinking it was the parents coming back for something, but no one answered. The system on the wall kept reading basement door open. I was freaked out, so I called my dad and asked him to come by since he was only a few houses away. When he arrived, he told me to stay in the kitchen while he checked the house, but before he could, we heard the beep 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 again, and then the garage door opened. When we ran to the window to see if the parents were pulling into the driveway, they weren't. Instead, someone in a hoodie was running out of the garage door and into the woods behind the house. My dad ended up calling the cops. I'm still creeped out by it. So did the parents never close the garage door? I was actually at a friend's house when her parents weren't home. We were maybe 10. It was her, my sister, her sisters and me. We decided to go swimming. There had been a rash of burglaries lately, but mostly garages being broken into. Anyway, we were in the pool when we noticed the kitchen light turn on. It was evening. We assumed her parents so looked in the window to do something stupid to get their attention when we realized we do not know the individual in the house. We hid behind the wall of the pool, above ground, terrified until her parents finally came home. It appeared as though he got spooked as he only ransacked the kitchen and left the garage door wide open when fleeing. When I was around 8 or 9, my mum commuted to a major city about an hour/hour and a half away, so I would bring myself home from school about 100 meters away, lock the door and watch cartoons or play Neopets until she got home. We lived in apartment blocks, and one day one of the older male people in the apartment lost his wallet, and he figured it must have been me. Keep in mind, I've never stolen anything in my life, or had any trouble with the law, and I had no clue what he was talking about. He came and banged on the door so aggressively that I jumped out of my skin and was belligerent, demanding I open the door. I rang mum crying, and she jumped on a train to come home, but she was an hour and a half away. She called some friends and they came and got me, and at that stage he had taken a break and gone back to his apartment, but left his dry cleaning there. When mum got back, she stormed straight to his door and pounded on it like he had done to our door. He came to the door, all shocked, and she demanded to know why he thought it was appropriate to bang on the door for an hour to scare a little girl. He replied that he thought I stole his wallet. Mum asked him if he still thought I did, and he said no, I found it in the car park. She looked like she wanted to kill him and forced him to apologize. Also, in that same apartment block, there was a hairline fracture on the sliding door that we didn't know about. A strong wind blew and crappeted the entire window inwards. I was home alone then too. That was scary as frick. It was spooky movie night at a friend's and we were 3 movies deep. Just finished watching Dark Skies. I was hungry, so I was like, alright, getting my leftovers. So I went downstairs by myself. When I closed the fridge I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, and when I turned to see what it was, there was a ghostly white, skeletal thing just staring at me from outside the patio, with shimmering hazy lights pulsing behind it. I freaking freaked, dropped my food and run up the stairs nearly in tears, babbling about someone or thing in the backyard. Turns out it was just my own reflection mixed with the lights and steam from the hot tub outside, but I've never been so scared in my life. Great movie though. Sounds like you might need to bulk up and get a tan. Not sure if this counts. Was working on a farm in northern Circa. It was a startup, and I was the only person, at nights, on an isolated 650 acres. After dinner, was walking from the lodge to my cabin, 100 yards plus dash. It's dark so all I can see is what my flashlight illuminates plus a little on the periphery of the main beam. Anyway, walking back and in the periphery I see red ducking eyes staring at me unblinkingly. I turn the light on it and all I see is a pale white mass behind the still red eyes. I freak. Takes a little bit to get me jumpy, but this sure as hell did. Picture a 65, 260 pound man. Now picture him letting out an unbelievably high pitched scream and straight sprinting into his cabin, 50 yards or so. The next day I was talking to one of the guys that come up to help out during the day, told him what happened, and he about fell over laughing. I think the sincere terror in my voice as I described the pale monster really drove the funny mail home for him. Well, turns out there's such a thing as albino deer and just so happens one frequents this property. Nobody thought to warn me beforehand. I was actually picturing a 65, 260 pounds red-eyed pale man, high-pitched screaming and running towards you. Almost pooped my pants until I read it again. It was a hot summer and my parents went to a wedding. I had a project to do, and it was like 1 AM and silent until a random drunk dude crawled in through my window with a bottle and blush face. I was 20 feet away at my desk from the window and we both just stared at each other. He was flustered and said, "Oh sorry there kid, wrong house," and attempts to leave the way he came. He was drunk and dizzy, so I helped him by pushing him out the window. I thoroughly shut it and stared at it for 2 hours until my parents came home. This is terrifying, but kind of funny. When I was a child, I lived in the upper of a duplex with my adult sister living in the unit below. One morning, we hear a blood-curdling scream, and my sister comes banging on our door. My sister worked third shift. She came home that morning and opened the door smelling strong urine. She walked through the living room to find a puddle of pee in the corner. She goes to the bathroom to find a huge turd in the toilet that she didn't make. Finally she went to the bedroom to find a very drunk man passed out in her bed with a wet spot all around him. Apparently he lived up the street, but got so drunk he accidentally walked in the wrong house and didn't realize it. Once he sobered up, he stopped by one day to sincerely apologize to my sister for scaring her so badly and was in rehab. So it worked out. My house came with an alarm that kept track of movement in every room. I set the alarm before bed, but I woke up in the middle of the night because it was alerting me that there was movement going back and forth between my guest bedroom, down the hall, and into my office. My alarm has a robotic speaking voice, so in the dark I'd hear it say, "Movement guest bedroom, movement second floor hallway, movement office," etc. I assume it was a glitch and nothing to worry about, but I ended up turning that function off. I also heard human footsteps above me in my attic once, home alone while my wife was out of town. But I posted that one already months ago. Clarification edit. My original phrasing is confusing, so I wanted to clarify. I got up immediately and searched through my entire house. Couldn't find anything. Figured it was a glitch and turned the feature off the next day. I didn't ignore the alarm that night. If I've learned anything here, you have a squatter living in your attic who only comes out when you're away or vulnerable enough not to check it out. You have some big balls. I would be either drenching that house with holy water or battering every door with an axe until the illegitimate child came out, and you didn't do anything about it. Clearly it's a person that is moving during the night in your house. My parents let me walk home from school alone when I was in 4th grade. In my now adult opinion, that's way too young. So I walk home from school. House is empty till about 5 when my parents get home. So I'm doing my usual routine. Mountain Dew Code Red, Doritos 3Ds, and Toonami on Cartoon Network. So I'm only home for about 3 minutes when I hear a knock at the door. 99% of the time I stay quiet and just wait for whoever to leave. But for whatever reason I actually go to the door and call out. "Who is it?" Stranger dude voice on the other side. "Hey. It's your buddy Mike." I don't have a grown ass man buddy Mike. I'm in 4th grade. My deuce goes cold. Heart in my throat. Goosebumps. Cannot move, paralyzed, terrified. Dude says again, "Hey, open the door, we gotta go." And he jiggles the door handle really hard. Then he knocks again, bam bam bam. Jiggles the door handle hard again. I'm still like 1 foot away from the door. I actually never moved since all of this started because I didn't want him to hear my footsteps. After a minute of silence I heard a car door close and him drive away. Him still freaked the muck out for the next hour, and worst thing was I was now super paranoid about walking to / from school because obviously he followed me that day and I had no idea I was being tailed. That's terrifying. Did you tell your parents? I'm just throwing this out there. I'm honestly not sure if this is from a movie or not. It's so scary. There had been a scratching in my ceiling for a while, and my landlady was dragging her feet over having it looked into. One night, around 2 AM, the scratching became so bad it woke me up from a dead sleep. I tried to reassure myself that whatever it was couldn't really get through to me, and I would be fine, until I could call my landlady the next day and really press the issue. Then some debris fell from my ceiling. Whatever was up there had managed to dig a small hole into my room. I screamed and heard some scurrying away from my approximate location. Grabbed any stuff I needed for the next day, got the duck out of there, shut the door tight behind me, and slept on the couch. I called my landlady first thing in the morning, and she had someone come while I was at work that day to check it out. A mama raccoon had managed to get her way into the space between the roof and my ceiling, and had given birth to a litter of kits. The guy speculated that the kits were getting old enough to start wrestling around, and that was likely what led to the hole in my ceiling. Luckily it was just small, the size of a quarter, so there weren't any angry raccoons hanging out in my room when I got home. They were able to safely trap and release the whole little family, but I still started hunting for new apartments as soon as possible. I move into my new place on May 1st. This happened many years ago when I was but a youngster. In my suburb there had recently been a spate of break and enters. Where I live, they tend to happen suburb by suburb, like one suburb will get hit a bunch then there'll be nothing for a while. My family had gone away for the weekend, but I had stayed home because I had work. I was up at midnight watching a James Bond movie, Live and Let Die for those playing at home, with all the lights in the house turned off, and I heard a really sudden and strange thud from my kitchen/living area. I instantly knew it was a weird noise. Nothing in the house made any noises like that, so it was immediately suspicious. Just as I was about to get up to go and check it out, I heard it again. That's when I realized it was actually the thudding of the thick glass sliding door from the kitchen to the outdoor patio. As I mentioned, all the lights are off, so I'm making my way through the house turning lights on. When I reach the light switch to turn on the patio light, I hit all of the lights at once, including the light at my front door, which is visible from where I'm now standing. We had those glass panels next to the front door, which I could now also see out of, since the light was on. There was nobody at the patio area at this time, but through the glass panels at the front door I saw someone sprint past and out of the yard. Even though I couldn't see any detail, it was unmistakable to see that it was a person running past. It later occurred to me that they were most likely kicking the glass patio door to try and smash it and break in, as I later learned that this is apparently one common method of entry during burglaries. I had initially assumed they were hitting it with something, but a boot would explain the deep hollow thud of the noise better than striking it with something. Was pretty spooky at the time. Just that sudden realization of that is not a normal noise. Kind of crazy what your intuition knows in moments like that.